Very disturbing to hear these things or to kind of see some of the receipts that appear to be connected to it. And I think the taxpayer.
Stay tuned, because we're about to dive into the utter chaos that is Dalton, Illinois, and its so-called super mayor, Tiffany Henyard. She has become a walking, talking reality TV disaster, and it's all unfolding right before our eyes. Henyard's campaign for re-election has hardly been about engaging with voters or focusing on the issues that matter. Instead, she's been giving away thousands of turkeys right before Thanksgiving, an obvious PR stunt so blatant and transparent that it's almost comical. However, this isn't funny when you're a resident of Dalton, watching your hard-earned tax dollars vanish. While the mayor plays Santa Claus, it's clear that Henyard's leadership is a political thriller in itself, but not in the way she would like to portray it. After winning her first term by a landslide, her tenure has become far more chaotic than anyone could have imagined. Her support has plummeted to an all-time low, down to a mere 3% just recently. During a massive blizzard, Henyard's handling of the snow removal situation was nothing short of disastrous. While Dalton was buried under feet of snow, businesses were forced to close, and residents were left stranded. Meanwhile, Henyard posted selfies on social media and blamed the weather for her failure to act. For days, the town was paralyzed by snow while the mayor's efforts to resolve the situation were, let's just say, less than stellar, but that's just one of the many issues plaguing this administration. Henyard holds not one but two political jobs, collecting paychecks from two public payrolls as the mayor of Dalton and as a public official in South Suburban Cook County. She's been traveling around making hollow promises and empty gestures, trying to curry favor with local churches. All while her town continues to spiral into dysfunction, residents are angry, businesses are struggling, and trust in Henyard has completely evaporated. One local even compared her to a South American dictator, pointing out that her face is plastered everywhere in town, much like the notorious Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela. But it gets worse. A preliminary analysis by former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot has uncovered shocking financial mismanagement within Henyard's administration. According to Lightfoot's report, Henyard used village credit cards for her personal purchases at Amazon, Target, Walgreens, and Wayfair, racking up a bill that raises serious red flags. In total, the village is missing over $3.6 million.
Like a misspending of tax funds. I think that's the biggest. That's
The situation in Dalton continues to unfold, and the most alarming aspect is that federal officers have been actively investigating the town, particularly focusing on Tiffany Henyard's administration. Federal agencies have been requesting bank data and other crucial information, raising the stakes for Henyard. This isn't just about a re-election campaign anymore. It's a desperate attempt to keep herself out of jail. If these investigations reveal criminal behavior, the consequences could be severe. Federal investigations can take anywhere from a couple of months to several years. But for Henyard, this timeline could spell the end of her political career. And much more, Henyard's leadership style has been nothing short of disastrous, with her financial mismanagement and the looming presence of federal authorities further highlighting the instability surrounding her tenure. She's infamous for her explosive temper and frequent tense interactions with the board and residents. One particularly bizarre incident occurred during a town council meeting, where Henyard dressed up as Nino Brown, the notorious drug kingpin from the movie New Jack City. To make matters even stranger, she had a DJ play "Ransom You Better Raise My Money" as part of the spectacle. This impulsive and erratic behavior has left many residents bewildered and disheartened. Her unpredictable attitude toward governance and her apparent disregard for basic professionalism have only deepened the dysfunction within the town. Local businesses, in particular, have been feeling the brunt of Henyard's erratic actions. Many have reported difficulties obtaining essential permits and licenses under her administration. A notable example is Lawrence Gardner, a trucking firm owner, who claimed that Henyard shut down his business after he refused to make significant contributions to her campaign. This story is far from unique, as other residents have shared similar experiences of harassment, intimidation, and retaliation by Henyard and her supporters. As a result, economic growth in Dalton has slowed dramatically, with many businesses and residents leaving the area in search of better opportunities. What was once a vibrant community has now degenerated, leaving many to wonder if Dalton can ever recover under Henyard's leadership. The town's council meetings have become increasingly chaotic, often ending early due to the absence of key trustees like Chris Gonzalez and Carmen Carlisle. When the meetings do take place, residents flood the halls, frustrated and angry, demanding answers. The people of Dalton are growing more disillusioned with Henyard's leadership, and it's easy to see why. Her inability to manage the town effectively, coupled with her penchant for drama and extravagance, has alienated the community. Local businesses and residents have repeatedly voiced their dissatisfaction with her administration. Many have publicly called her tenure a disgrace and questioned why she hasn't stepped down. One resident expressed frustration at Henyard's refusal to listen to reason, pointing out that her actions have only worsened the problems plaguing the town. Henyard's inability to govern responsibly and her blatant disregard for the community's needs have made her one of America's most notorious mayors. Of controversy surrounding her leadership goes far beyond her personal struggles. The entire village is paying the price for her mismanagement. Trustees have accused Henyard of financial mismanagement and overstepping her authority, leading to escalating tensions. In fact, board meetings have had to be moved to larger venues just to accommodate the growing number of residents attending to voice their concerns. These heated disputes have become so frequent and intense that they practically become a daily occurrence in Dalton, underscoring the deeply fractured relationship between Henyard and the community. She was elected to serve what was once seen as a promising leadership opportunity, has devolved into a chaotic and disruptive force. Henyard's inability to bridge the growing divide between herself and the town has left many residents wondering how much longer Dalton can sustain this level of dysfunction before it reaches a breaking point. The town's future hinges on a leadership that can inspire confidence. But under Henyard, that leadership seems increasingly out of reach. The people of Dalton deserve better, and as the controversy continues to unfold, the question remains: will the town ever recover from the chaos that Henyard has created?
Board do not show up. We are not able to pay bills. We are not able to have.
The frustration among the residents of Dalton continues to grow as Tiffany Henyard's leadership increasingly alienates those she was elected to serve. Her blatant incapacity to manage the town, her disregard for the needs of the community, and her handling of public matters have left people fed up. Dalton is becoming a town defined by constant drama, poor financial management, and an overwhelming sense that a dictator is running things. Under Henyard's administration, the town has been marked by lavish parties, empty promises, and a complete lack of accountability, leaving residents feeling both ignored and unrepresented. Public outcry against Henyard's leadership has reached a boiling point. One resident even went as far as calling her tenure a disgrace to the town and demanded that she resign. Another pointed out Henyard's refusal to listen to reason as one of the major contributors to the ongoing issues plaguing Dalton. These sentiments are echoed by many who are tired of Henyard's failure to govern responsibly and her inability to prioritize the needs of the community. As a result, Henyard has become one of America's most notorious mayors, a figure whose controversies far exceed her personal struggles. The whole village is paying the price for her poor leadership. The tension between Henyard and the village trustees is reaching a fever pitch. They've accused her of financial mismanagement and overstepping her authority. Board meetings have become so contentious and crowded that they've been moved to larger venues just to accommodate the growing number of residents who show up to voice their concerns. These disputes have become a regular part of life in Dalton, and they are a reflection of the deeply fractured relationship between Henyard and the very community she was elected to lead. Once seen as a promising figure, her leadership has devolved into chaos, deepening the divide between the mayor and her constituents. Many are left wondering how much longer this kind of mismanagement can persist before the town reaches a breaking point. We just want responsible, adult communication, and to try to do the right thing for the city, one concerned resident said. But instead of delivering the leadership Dalton needs, Henyard has continued to make headlines for all the wrong reasons. Her efforts to appoint a new police chief, for example, have sparked fierce opposition from the trustees. This controversy has only worsened with significant legal blows against her. A Cook County court has already overturned several of her key appointments, including the appointment of Michael Smith as executive assistant and special counsel, declaring them invalid. These legal setbacks, combined with the growing rift between Henyard and the trustees, further highlight the dysfunction within her administration. Henyard's personal life has also become a source of controversy, adding a layer of irony to her already tumultuous public tenure. Her landlord has filed a lawsuit against her for unpaid rent, accusing the mayor of failing to pay thousands of dollars. This financial debacle contrasts sharply with Henyard's history of mismanaging taxpayer funds. It's almost unbelievable that someone who cannot even manage her own finances is entrusted with overseeing a town's budget. Henyard's personal financial issues expose a deeper level of incompetence and hypocrisy, as she continues to spend public money irresponsibly while neglecting her own obligations. This personal and professional turmoil highlights a broader issue of governmental dysfunction in Dalton. Henyard, once seen as a leader who would bring change, has instead demonstrated a pattern of arrogance and unchecked authority. Her actions, including lavish parties funded by taxpayer dollars, serve as a stark reminder of failure to prioritize the needs of the town over her own desires. One such party, which reportedly cost $85,000, featured rapper Jay Holiday and R&B singer K. while community remains buried in debt. Meanwhile, Henyard has been using her position to further her own interests, often ignoring the needs and concerns of the residents who rely on her to act in their best interest. The legal battles, public scandals, and financial mismanagement are not isolated incidents, but a clear pattern of behavior that has undermined Henyard's ability to lead effectively. Her failure to listen to the residents, her disregard for accountability, and her tendency to self-preserve at the expense of community have left Dalton residents feeling helpless and betrayed. Henyard's attempt to cling to power, despite the overwhelming legal challenges and public outrage, suggests that her re-election campaign is less about serving the people of Dalton and more about keeping herself out of jail as the legal challenges continue to mount. Henyard's leadership is beginning to unravel. The urgent need for accountability and responsible governance has never been more apparent. The question now is whether the residents of Dalton, along with the rest of the political establishment, will take the necessary steps to remove Henyard from office before she causes further harm. Her leadership has been marked by incompetence, scandal, and a blatant abuse of power. Her inability to fulfill basic financial obligations, both personally and as a mayor, has created a perfect storm of incompetence that is rapidly deteriorating her relationship with the very people she was supposed to serve. Henyard's tenure has become a cautionary tale of the dangers of unchecked power and the importance of holding elected officials accountable. With each passing day, her credibility continues to erode, and the community is left to pick up the pieces. If Henyard is truly interested in serving the people of Dalton, she must focus on repairing the damage she has done, take responsibility for her actions, and step away from the constant drama and self-preservation. However, at this point, it seems her desperate grasp on power may only deepen the divide and worsen the already precarious situation. It's clear that Dalton deserves better, a leader who can manage the town's finances responsibly, listen to the concerns of the community, and foster an environment of accountability and trust. The residents of Dalton have suffered long enough under Henyard's administration. As the legal and political fallout continues to mount, the people of Dalton must ask themselves, how much longer can they afford to wait for change? How much longer will they tolerate the chaos and dysfunction that has defined Tiffany Henyard's time in office? The clock is ticking, and the people of Dalton are demanding answers.
Schedule board meetings. I don't care if you agree or disagree, but you must show up to say yes or no.
Let's take a moment to examine the thought-provoking feedback shared by YouTube followers who have been closely watching the ongoing developments surrounding Tiffany Henyard's leadership in Dalton. One insightful commenter pointed out that Henyard's victory in the last election was won by just a few hundred votes, an observation that sheds light on the populist power dynamics in play. This narrow margin is particularly significant because it underscores how much influence the people of Dalton hold in determining their future. If enough residents unite and mobilize in large numbers, they have potential to demand a change in leadership and remove Henyard, whom many now view as a disastrous mayor. This provides a glimmer of hope for those who are disillusioned with her leadership and are ready to see change in their community. Another comment raised a valid frustration regarding the lack of accountability from higher authorities, particularly questioning why senior officials have allowed Henyard's mismanagement to continue unchecked for so long. This is an important concern and speaks to a broader issue within the Illinois political system, the failure of oversight. It is hard to understand why a town like Dalton, which has been embroiled in controversy and dysfunction for years, has not received any significant intervention from state or federal authorities. The fact that Henyard's financial mismanagement, legal battles, and governance failures have continued without meaningful oversight from those in higher positions of power only deepens the public's distrust in the political system. The lack of intervention from higher powers not only raises questions about the effectiveness of the checks and balances meant to safeguard against mismanagement, but it also exposes the larger systemic issues that plague Illinois politics. Residents of Dalton are left to wonder why no one has stepped in to address the growing concerns about Henyard's leadership, which further fuels the disillusionment and dissatisfaction with the political establishment. The absence of meaningful intervention and accountability has eroded the community's faith in their elected officials, and it calls into question the very framework of governance that is supposed to ensure the responsible management of public resources. In addition to these concerns, another issue has emerged in nearby Thornton Township that has further exacerbated the growing frustration within the community. An important local business, which could have provided a significant boost to the area, hit a major roadblock, not due to factors like weather or logistical challenges, but because two trustees refused to do their part in moving the process forward. This situation paints a disturbing picture of a town caught in political gridlock, where the leadership, whether driven by personal agendas or sheer incompetence, is unable or unwilling to take the necessary actions to move things forward. The failure of these trustees to act on behalf of the community reflects a broader issue of dysfunction in Dalton, where petty political games and personal agendas often take precedence over the needs of the people. In a town where residents are already dealing with a myriad of challenges, The inability of local leadership to work together and make decisions that benefit the community only adds to the sense of frustration and helplessness. The issue is not just one of bad governance. It's a symptom of a larger political culture that values personal power over progress and neglects the very constituents they're supposed to serve. This failure of leadership to move Dalton forward is further compounded by the ongoing scandals and legal battles surrounding Henyard's administration. With decisions being delayed, obstructed, or outright ignored, residents are left wondering whether their town will ever break free from this cycle of inefficiency and corruption. The current state of affairs in Dalton underscores a critical need for true leadership. Leaders who are willing to put the needs of the community above their own personal interests and who are capable of making the tough decisions necessary to ensure progress. Unfortunately, under Henyard's leadership, such leadership has been sorely lacking in increasing public dissatisfaction with Henyard's administration, and the failure of leadership to address pressing issues have further eroded the public's trust in their elected officials. From the ongoing mismanagement of funds to the constant legal disputes and lack of transparency, Dalton is in desperate need of a shift in leadership. The people have spoken, and they are ready for change. However, whether that change will come in time to undo the damage done remains uncertain. The broader question now is whether the political system in Dalton will undergo the necessary transformation to ensure better oversight and more accountable leadership, or whether the town will continue to spiral into further dysfunction, leaving its residents stuck in a cycle of ineptitude and failed governance as the next election approaches. The stakes could not be higher for the future of Dalton. The pressure is mounting on Henyard, and her attempts to cling to power have become more desperate by the day. Her re-election campaign, which was once seen as a potential opportunity for a fresh start, now feels more like a last-ditch effort to avoid the inevitable consequences of her actions. The odds are undeniably stacked against her. Her administration has been defined by scandals, legal battles, and a string of failures that have left residents frustrated and disillusioned, from the ongoing FBI investigation into her administration to the public outcry over her mishandling of funds and poor governance. Henyard's tenure has become a case study in political mismanagement. The situation has gotten so bad that it is no longer just the local residents calling for change. Many of Henyard's political allies have also distanced themselves from her as evidence of her incompetence continues to mount. The question now isn't whether Henyard will continue to hold office, but whether she can somehow pull off the unthinkable and secure re-election despite overwhelming opposition and public dissatisfaction with each passing day. Henyard's political future appears to be slipping further out of reach. Her scandals and legal battles have made it increasingly difficult for her to maintain any semblance of credibility. Even her attempts to hold on to power by any means necessary, whether through extravagant PR stunts or political maneuvering, have failed to stem the tide of opposition. The tipping point seems to be fast approaching, as the people of Dalton are no longer willing to accept the status quo. They have had enough of the constant scandals, the legal battles, and the broken promises that have characterized Henyard's time in office. Henyard's political downfall seems almost inevitable at this point. The mounting frustration from community, the growing legal pressure, and the continued public outrage over her failures make it increasingly unlikely that she will be able to weather the storm. Her campaign for re-election appears to be little more than a desperate attempt to stave off the inevitable. But even if she does manage to secure another term, the damage to her reputation and the public's trust in her leadership may be irreparable. The question now is not whether Henyard's time in office will come to an end, but when. The people of Dalton have made it clear that they are ready for change. They are tired of the incompetence, the corruption, and the endless cycle of mismanagement that has come to define Henyard's tenure. Whether Henyard will be able to secure re-election, or whether the mounting pressure from the public and the ongoing FBI investigation will ultimately bring her down, remains to be seen. However, one thing is clear. The time for change in Dalton is long overdue as the FBI investigation continues and the public outrage grows. The pressure on Henyard only intensifies. It seems increasingly unlikely that she will be able to weather the storm. The tipping point is fast approaching, and it remains to be seen whether Henyard will be able to turn things around, or if the weight of her failures will finally lead to her downfall. What is certain, however, is that the people of Dalton are ready for a new direction. They are no longer willing to accept the endless cycle of mismanagement and scandal that has come to define Henyard's time in office. Whether Henyard will be able to secure re-election, or whether pressure from the public and the ongoing FBI investigation will ultimately bring her down, remains to be seen. But one thing is clear. The people of Dalton have spoken, and they want change. They are no longer willing to tolerate the dysfunction that has plagued their town under Henyard's leadership. As the next election draws closer, the future of Dalton hangs in the balance. Will the residents rise up and demand the change they deserve, or will they continue to be stuck in the cycle of scandal and mismanagement that has defined their town for far too long? Only time will tell, but the growing dissatisfaction among the people of Dalton makes it clear that change is not just needed, it is inevitable.